Good people, great people, guys, people. What the deal? What the deal? What the deal? We are back. We are back. It's been a nice little hiatus, you feel me? It's been a nice little chill, you feel me? But we here. We back. We ready to talk about more interesting topics. So, for those of you all who don't know, my name is Odilakachi William Hezekiah Onkwe, and welcome to Odie's office. We do the live stream both through TikTok and on YouTube. So right now, if you were to go to my YouTube, Odie's office, please subscribe to my YouTube. I'm getting ready to drop a podcast to everybody's request, right? So yes, I'm finally gonna do the podcast thing. I'm gonna be uploading this episode to my podcast, which is available on Spotify. It's also available on I forget, Anchor. Yeah, so Odie's office is definitely going to be available on those platforms as well, so y'all go check it out. Also, for the people who are asking me how it is that they can access my services, my website is in my bio. If you go in my bio, that's where I have all of my services. I currently have 3 services right now, which are online communities, online group coaching communities, individual one-on-one sessions, high ticket, and I also have a book club. All of these things are paid, and if you would like to engage in any of these things, then you can go to my website, www.blackwealth.com, and yeah, let's get busy. So, the topic of today's live is men have feelings, question mark. Now, some of y'all may be wondering why I put the question mark in there, right? Because it can be obvious that men have feelings. But is it really obvious, right? Do we really take the time to assess what men feel in an honest way, right? And the reason why I'm asking this question is because over the weekend, and actually over the hiatus, a number of things happened that were very interesting, and I had emotional responses to, right? I went to go see The Woman King with one of my previous partners. I engaged in a multitude of conversations with my clients that were very enlightening as it related to men's issues. I went to a symposium in Germantown, Philly, that had Mark Anthony Hill and other educators in the black community and activists in the black community talking about, how bell hooks' feminism or black feminism or womanism could potentially help men heal through what it is that they are experiencing within blackness. So there were a number of things that I experienced over my hiatus, but one of the things was this. I was doing therapy with one of my clients, and at the end of the session, she said, "Mr. Odie, you really helped me realize that men have feelings." And I thought that was interesting because in my mind, I had thought to myself, well, I thought it was obvious that men had feelings, right? I thought it was obvious that we as men experience emotional, variations the same way everybody else does. But clearly, it's not that obvious, right? So when we talk about the way that it is that we as men are socialized to experience our emotions, we are socialized to experience our emotions in a very binary way, right? So I just did a group with Express Yourself Black Man yesterday. Shout out to my brother Kizzle, right? I did a group with Express Yourself Black Man yesterday, and what we were talking about was how it is that we as men have been socialized to believe that our masculinity is either on or off, right? And that on or off masculinity is based upon how it is that other men say that we are supposed to operate as men. So it's very much so this traditional ideology of men must behave this way, and they cannot behave in any other way outside of this deviation, right? So I've had grown men come into my therapy rooms and say to me, "Mr. Odie, I don't know what my emotions feel like. I don't know how to express my emotions. I don't know how to identify what it is that I'm feeling," right? And I didn't necessarily find that interesting. I just found it very refreshing that a man was able to express in that way his lack of emotion, because in that space I could very well see that this man was exasperated with his inability to connect with his partner or with his family. right? So a number of us as men experience the frustration of not being fully emotionally present with our partners, but because we don't have the emotional verbiage to express it, it just comes out as frustration, right? Which is the reason why I say a lot of the men in the red pill community have viable reasons to be upset. They have viable reasons to be angry because they consistently find themselves in arenas or spaces that reinforce the idea that they are not masculine enough without proper or healthy archetypes to lean into a healthier masculinity. Because the archetypes that we have that are related to our conceptualization of masculinity, or the archetypes that we have that are related to how it is that we engage in masculinity, are all aggressive and violent. Which then becomes the de facto emotional, I guess you could say, range that people perceive men's emotions in. This is the reason why so many men commit violent crimes. This is the reason why when men unalive themselves, it's usually in more violent ways, because we are attempting to express that masculinity. We are attempting to express that dominance over the environment. We are attempting to express how it is that we can control and lead not only ourselves but others, because we believe that that is what creates our masculinity. Okay, that's understandable. What happens to the boy who sees these things and all he recognizes is violence and aggression? What happens to the boy that recognizes these things and has seen these things weaponized against his mothers and sisters and does not want to engage in this type of masculinity because he can see in his heart of hearts that it is not healthy? What happens to the boy who is experiencing what we would call feminine emotions, yet he has no outlet because the men around him are ill-equipped to give him the knowledge in order for him to process his emotions, and the women around him believe that he has to behave more like a man and not like a woman because these women are also ill-equipped to deal with emotional men because of patriarchal socialization? We talk about mental health a lot, and we talk about mental health with everybody except little black boys. We talk about everybody else's health except little black boys. And to be quite honest, to be fair, we don't talk about white men's mental health until it gets to the point where they become violent either. We really don't. We are triggered to talk about men's mental health reactionarily when things become violent, right? When things become unstable, because we identify men as the rocks and the stabilizers to society. So once again, when we remove this idea that men are not emotional beings, it becomes a more straightforward conversation, right? Or rather, it becomes a more nuanced conversation. Because I'm gonna tell y'all something about black feminism, to be specific, and which is the reason why I get so upset with black men who be like, "Oh, black feminism, da 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 da." I can tell that y'all don't read the books. I can tell, because you all are responding from a space of feeling as if though you are excluded. Brother, in every book I've ever read about black feminism, there is always space for black men. Always. Which for me lets me know that even if at their bottom dollar, black women will try to share 50 to 25 cents with black men. That's what black feminism is. Sincerely, that is what womanism is. It is about harmony, and it is about balance within the environment and within yourself. But because we as men have not accessed that part of ourselves to give us the illumination that we need in order to not be reactionary or fighting with this idea of abandonment, which is really where our disdain of feminism comes from. It comes from a fear of abandonment. That's where it comes from. But us holding on to this idea that women have to be subservient is racing us towards the abandonment that we fear the most. Us not allowing ourselves to respect our own divine feminine, our own need for nurturing, our own need for care, is accelerating the distance between black men and black women. Because I will say it again, the statistics do not lie. Black men marry outside of the race more than black women. The books do not lie. The writing on the wall does not lie. I have seen more instances in how to take care of black men in black film literature than I have seen examples of how to take care of black women in black male TV and film. We as black men are hurting from what has gone on in the patriarchy, and we are not addressing it because we want to uphold the patriarchy. Because we believe that we will have our time in the sun in the power complex. But brother, what is the value of power if you have nobody to share it with? What is the value of being a god or having dominion if you have no followers? What is the point of being a king in an empty kingdom? Are you still king? So, I went to go see The Woman King, right? Yeah, we gonna get into it, right? Oh, it's revisionist. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. I don't give a damn about none of that. We're talking about the themes right now, right? We're talking about the themes. And one of the themes in The Woman King was very interesting to me because I was like, I'm finna shake the table. I'm finna shake the table, right? So in The Woman King, there were two male kings that were not central to the story, but they were peripheral to the progress of the storyline. It was the king of Oyo, and it was the king of Dahomey, right? So the king of Oyo was the very brutal one, right? The very one who was trying to make things chaotic, in the one who did this thing to Viola Davis, right? The king of Oyo, the very big bully, this one, right? Then you had the king of Dahomey, the one who was very benevolent, the one who wanted to bring about the things that will have the change, right? Immediately as soon as I saw that, what I recognized was one. We as men like to talk about kingship, but we never want to talk about the type of kings that we want to be. I'm going to say that one more time. We as men always like to talk about the fact that we want to be kings, the fact that we want to be leaders, the fact that we want to go this distance, but we never talk about how it is that we want to lead. We never talk about how it is that we want to rule. We never talk about how it is that we want to be in our kingdoms. What type of king do you want to be? Right? Because people would then talk about the political aspects of the Dahomey people selling other Africans into slavery. This is the reason why I get so upset when people talk about this movie this way. We tend to make things monolithic that we do not understand because it assists with our frame of reference. Because I am an African man, because I am an Igbo man, I can tell you that the way in which politics happened in Africa pre-colonially was more tribal than it was based upon nation. That's one. Two, just like here in the United States, we have dissent across ideas of nations. There was dissent across ideologies of tribes. So just like you had abolitionists in the United States of America, it is plausible that there were people who were abolitionist minded based upon recognizing that the slave trade was decentering how it is that matrilineal or that spirit-based African tribes worked. So in other words, we are selling our own people into this monstrosity that is bringing back whatever this is into the village. So in other words, they realized that the reason why they were at so much war was because they were participating in the things that brought war to them. Right? So that could have very much so been what it is that was going on in that progress. It's plausible. It's plausible, right? But this is the point that I'm making. The king of Oyo wanted to continue the very much so masculine monstrosity, right? Because when we talk about men participating in the economy. We talk about men building the world. We want to take accolade for all of the good things, but we built slavery as well. We built the ships that carried the slaves. We built the institutions, insurance, banking, railroads, coal mines. We oversaw all of these things. Yet we want to shirk the responsibility of those things. What type of king do you want to be? Because the king of Oyo wanted to continue these things, right? But the king of Dahomey wanted to assist the warrior king and assist the woman king in stopping them, right? Even if it was just for that moment in time in history, even if it was just for that moment in time, even if it was just a blip on the map. It was still there. So the reason why I draw this parallel is because the Yoruba people were not centralized. In other words, we as black people, we as black men, there were no other white men for us to point to and say, hey, that's what he's doing. Or we're doing this because of this. No, you're doing this of your own volition. You are doing this of your own will. Right? Because the best thing about the movie for me was that the fact that the idea of white political alignment was removed. All of those things were central to how it is that those people thought about the world themselves. How those people thought about the world themselves outside of the slave trade. Right? So once again, outside of white supremacy, outside of what white supremacy gives you, outside of the power that white supremacy yields you, what type of king are you? What type of king have you decided to be? Have you decided to be a king of chaos, a lord of darkness? Or have you decided to be a steward of light, a king of benevolence? Right? Because the idea of kingship, the idea of having a kingdom, rests in the sense of the king. It rests in the communication of the king. It rests in the wisdom of the king. Because if the king is not wise, if the king is not illuminated, if the king is not worldly, then the queen can do nothing. Right? So how is this relevant to men having feelings? Odie, what does this have to do with us having feelings? A lot of us do not understand that the way that it is that we approach things are based upon our anger with things. The patriarchal world is just as unfair to men as it is to women and children. We just believe that it's less unfair because we get paid more for it. The patriarchy is just as unfair to men as it is to women and children. We just believe it's more fair because we get paid more for it. So let's run it down, right? Fellas, raise your hand if your first introduction to masculinity was some type of violence or aggression. Fellas, raise your hand if you had a father where as soon as things got emotionally heightened, he would either explode or shut down. Fellas, raise your hand if you had a father that was in the home but not present in his mind because he was working all the time. Fellas, raise your hand if you had a father that was in and out of your life. Fellas, raise your hand if you have a father that's incarcerated. Fellas, raise your hand if you have a father that was taken by gun violence. Fellas, raise your hand if you have a father that does not believe that he is a father. He believes that he is still somebody's son. The anger that we have with black women, a lot of that anger came from their fathers, fellas. A lot of that resentment came from their fathers, fellas. A lot of that hurt came from their fathers, fellas. Their first little purses wasn't cute. It was a piece of baggage that came from their fathers, fellas. So what does that mean? Because a black family is a black woman, a black man, a black son, and a black daughter. The nucleic, the ideal. Which means that if any part of that cycle is broken, the entire rest of that circle is incomplete. Why do we not look at our part of that circle? Why do we like to say that we hold each other accountable when we could be doing a lot more work? Why do we like to say that the way that it is that we hold women accountable is through violence and aggression? That's not accountability. That's punishment. Right? Why do we believe that we can utilize the wrath of God, but women cannot? Why do we believe that they do not have that authority? All of those things come back on us through provider guilt, through feeling as if though if you cannot perform either physically or sexually, you are not a man. It comes back on us in the sense of if we do not make enough money, we are not useful. It comes back on us in the sense of we feel as if though we cannot express our emotions and what it is that we're feeling. It comes back on us in the sense of us being disconnected from our children and from our partners, but desperately wanting to do so. It comes from us not understanding our emotions and then getting to a point where we mad all the time, and the only way we can get over that is by drinking. Y'all ever really listen to the records that men put out, especially people in hip hop? As a person, it's a cold beat. As a clinician, these motherfuckers is depressed. Biggie's entire Ready to Die album was a self-reflection that was put in prose that ended in suicide. Y'all don't think that's depression? Y'all don't think that's anxiety? Most black men's introduction into masculinity is through trauma. Trauma significantly changes the brain. And you don't think that impacts the way that you process information? You don't think that impacts the reason why you can't go to sleep unless you off 50 different pills? Right? I forget what the song was called. The song that Kodak sampled for Transporting. That song was about paranoia. The song Paranoia by Chance the Rapper. Right? We as men are introduced to our own manhood through the violence of masculinity. That is how we are introduced to our manhood. It is usually through the violence of masculinity. We as men are hazed when we are boys to be men. We are not taught to be men when we are boys. We are hazed into manhood. Right? So, on Sunday, I was thinking about some things, right? And I wrote a letter. I wrote it out loud because I needed to brain dump for a little bit. But usually when I write, it's in some type of prose. So I'm going to read this to you all. And then I'm going to continue to move forward based upon what it is that I wrote, right? So here it is. Things that I'm learning about myself. The tone that I take with black men on my platforms comes from my own hurt with my father. And like me, I know a lot of brothers are hurting. But also like me, we falling into the trap of emotional abuse and beating on one another as men is tough love, and not the generational trauma of emotional neglect. We as black men are criminalized by 3. We are neglected emotionally from 4 until we start reminding our mothers of the patriarchy that left them with this child to begin with. Then we're jettisoned into adulthood with a child that was showered with affection because of fear of his death and conditioned suppression from fear of being gay, which results in a man who is seeking solace in arms that have the physical attributes that other men envy without awareness for the spirit that brought him there. We as black men are militarized for a war against a common enemy at a disorganized front. Internalized whiteness runs so deep that we've delved into conversations about what black women don't do and how we should follow suit instead of taking accountability for our lot in the black relationship. We deserve love, but we have not earned trust. They are different. We as black men are angry with black women because they represent the mothers that abused us, trying to be the fathers that left us. I'm going to say that one more time. We as black men are angry with black women because they represent the mothers that abused us, trying to be the fathers that left us. The trauma unhealed showing up as fear of abandonment marked with machismo. These bitches ain't shit, but why? Because they hurt the feelings that we swear we don't have. So we cause pain to our sons to teach them to ignore the emotions that we don't feel. Black men, stop lying to your sons. You ain't good. The demons that you are fighting belong to your father. The demons that you are fighting belong to your father. Right? So what does that mean? There are a number of black men who will say that they were afraid of being fathers because their father was absent. There are a number of black men who do not know the terror of love until they have children. There are a number of black men who don't come to terms with any of the things that happen in their life because they believe that they do not deserve that solace or that peace, because it will remove them from the masculinity that they so much desire, but also is reinforced by other people. I'm going to give an example. So I've been reading through the book When Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost, right? And in the book, once again, black feminism tackles some of the questions that we as black men ask black women all of the time. That very confusing idea of women wanting men that have both the qualities of emotionality and masculinity. Black feminists tackle with that a lot, right? Because in the book When Chicken Heads Come Home to Roost, the author asked a series of questions that literally came from, what if we truly had a gender neutral society? She said, as a black woman, it will bug me out a bit. And one of the points was very interesting. She said that as much as I want a brother who can understand my sensibilities, I know that my pussy does not get as wet for the brother with more feminist attributes than the reformed thug nigga who probably gonna do something to me that I'm not gonna like. And I was like, Yet once again, we like to deny to men how it is that women have weaponized the patriarchy against them. We like to deny men the space that we yield to women when it comes to expressing their true emotional disposition. Right? We like to tell men to go to therapy, but do you know how much literature exists on men's issues? Psychological literature? Do you know how much psychological literature exists on men's issues? Not the effects of the patriarchy. We have a lot of literature on that. But how men respond to the issues that men have, how they resolve or how they come to the resolution of existing in a patriarchy that calls for them to be this way in order to attract mates, sincerely, versus being the man that they actually want to be outside of socialization. We don't have a lot of conversations around that because we as men don't have a lot of conversations around that, right? We don't really talk about what it is that we're feeling. We don't really discuss how it is that these things have a large role in what it is that we experience as men. So I'm going to give an example, right? Alpha male bulls and the people and the men in the red pill community, they are emotional extremists, right? They became emotional extremists through emotional trauma. The emotional trauma that they felt was usually at an intersection where a woman harmed them and another man told them that they were less of a man because they allowed another woman to harm them. What then becomes of that with a lot of men is that they feel that they now have to become a player or a womanizer, not because they just want to, you know what I'm saying, play with women's hearts or something like that. No. It's deeper than that. Don't let these men lie to you. They do that because they do not want to be harmed by somebody else, because they don't know how to resolve it. Right? We as men will say, oh, well, you know what I'm saying, we don't care. Oh, we don't da-da-da-da-da. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You may not care about everybody that comes across your path, but you care about some of them women. You care about some of them situationships that you was in. You just don't want to say it because you think it make you look like a pussy. Come on now, G. Out your big edge. Come on now, son. Come on. Right? Do we really have to be this hyper masculine, aggressive, violent, or will to do violent man all the time? Right? We like to talk about warriors. We like to talk about people who are willing to go to war. The best warriors know how to rest and take care of themselves because they recognize that their bodies are instruments of war. They recognize that their minds are instruments of war. They also recognize that war is not the eternity of life. Because the warriors that we like to reference the violence that they cause. We do not like to represent, or we do not like to reference the discipline of the mind, spirit, and the heart that they had, the resolve that they had, right? And not in terms of violence, in terms of relationships with themselves and the environment that they were in, right? The warriors back then fought to protect their homeland. The men that we have now fight to protect themselves. The men that we had previously would fight for their homelands. The men that we have now fight for themselves. And I'm not saying that it's our fault completely, right? Economics, morals, socialization, all of those things contribute to that. But that's my point. What is it going to take for you as a man to recognize that the way in which you are attempting to define your manhood harms you? When are you going to realize that the very questions that you are asking women come from the assumption that you as a man are supposed to provide these things, and the reason why you're asking this question is because there's a part of you that truly believes that it's unfair that you have to shoulder the weight of everything? That is literally a patriarchal thought that you are arguing against, but you are arguing against it in a misogynistic way. I'm going to say that one more time. The 50-50 argument is a patriarchal pressure that men in this economy know that they cannot reach, but they are arguing it in a misogynistic way. In other words, I don't want to be responsible for the wills of the patriarchy, so because you as a woman have been responsible for hundreds of years, I'm just going to make you more responsible. Right? Because I always hear it from the perspective of, what is the woman doing in order to compensate for this lack? I've never heard, I am waiting for the day that a woman gets on one of these podcasts and asks the men, okay, if a woman is bringing these things to the table, or if a woman is taking care of you in this way, would you honestly be willing to take a back seat, do all of the emotional labor that women do, taking care of the details, taking care of all of those things? So literally, if this woman was providing to you what it is that you are asking for, would you be willing to be a stay-at-home husband in return? Is your ego, is your masculinity that strong to take on that mantle? If it is not, you are not looking for equity in your relationship. You are not looking for shared power. You are not looking for an equal yoke. You are looking for a woman to pick up the work that you do not want to do. You are attempting to find another mother to take care of the son that you yourself cannot control. In other words, you are looking for a woman to reel in the inner child that you have not reared properly for yourself. So we coming back to the conversation about this little black boy. What did you learn as a black boy? What did you learn was appropriate as it relates to your emotions and your feelings as a black boy? What did you learn from the presence or absence of your black father? What did you learn from the antics and the stories of your black grandfather and your black uncles, if they were there? Because I'm going to tell you something, 100%. We are all complicit in hiding the skeletons of the patriarchy, all of us. All of us. Because I'm almost certain that the father that left or the father that cheated had a mother or a sister that was attempting to defend him when he was doing the bullshit. So none of us are absolved. But we as men like to deflect. We as men like to blame black women for the harm that our mother caused us and not go seek alternatives outside of fucking drinking and smoking and playing sports in order for us to get through this emotional time or this emotional difficulty. Brothers, we have to do more work in the space of emotional intelligence because it is part and parcel to saving the black family that y'all swear y'all want to lead. Brother, how can you lead your family into salvation and safety when the inside of you is not even safe for yourself? How can you lead your family into riches and wealth and you don't even have that within your own mindset? How can you lead your family into belief? How can you lead your family into leadership? How can you lead your family into all of these things and you have not led yourself into them? Once again, a lot of you as men ask women for submission, not because you have earned it, but because you are looking for emotional validation. I'm going to say it one more time. A lot of you as men ask women for submission, not because you have earned it, but because you are looking for emotional validation. Because the way in which you define your manhood is based upon whether or not you can dominate, control, engage in sexual prowess, and lead somebody into doing something that you want them to do. You ask women for submission because you are looking for emotional validation. Because you want somebody to wait for it, listen to you. You also want somebody to wait for it, validate your reality. You also want somebody to wait for it, nurture you. Yeah, brother, that's what I'm talking about. But are you going to reciprocate those things? Do you have the tools to reciprocate them? The reason why these women are not with us now, and I promise y'all, if y'all read Chicken Heads Come to Roost, it makes sense. These things are happening chronologically. The women who are giving birth to the women now have been telling their daughters or explaining to their daughters, do not allow this man to control you. Do not allow this man to manipulate you because I have been manipulated in the past. Right? So we as men, in turn, this is what we're doing. Oh, so you just is your mama married? Is you, woo, 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 you learned that from your mama. Woo, dabba, 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 dabba. Okay. Why do we not talk about the man that gave her this scar? Oh, y'all need to learn how to be better women. Y'all not like the women that our mamas and our grandmothers was. You right. You right. Because our mamas and grandmamas is tired. Because we still up in their house eating their food. But they too scared of us dying to tell us to go on and get something done. That's why that's happening. That's why that's happening. Right? So let's be very clear about what it is that we as men are asking for. We are asking for a partner who is going to emotionally validate, support, and nourish us. But have our fathers and uncles done the same thing to our mothers, grandmothers, and aunts? So let's be very clear. Have we as black men taught ourselves to nourish, to provide for, and to uplift ourselves the same way black women had to? Have we adapted to the emotional landscape the same way black women have adapted to the economic landscape? Have we done that? Because if you want me to be honest with you, the reason why we as black men are not as far along as we are is because we continue to allow ourselves, once again, to excuse emotional abuse through tough love. The reality of the world is already harsh for black men. You don't got to make it no harsher. That's dumb. You don't have to scream at your child to let them know that they're not in la la land. But damn, let us be kids, bro. Let a black boy be a black boy. Y'all so concerned about these boys being gay, or y'all so concerned about these men not being masculine. What are we preparing them for? Let's be very honest. What are we? Who are we preparing our black boys to be? It's not present fathers, because we're getting better. We are. The statistics of two-parent households are increasing, right? But once again, being physically present is one part. We are getting better, but being physically present is one part. Are we actually raising our black boys to be emotionally present men? Are we raising them to be emotionally present providers? Are we raising our black boys to be emotionally plugged up at all? Once again, we are so concerned about the continued emasculinization of black men that we are not looking at how it is that we've aligned or ascribed our projections of masculinity to whiteness. So in other words, we are afraid of being removed from a contextualization of masculinity that was never designed for you to be in it. I've said this before. White men began that idea that black men were not masculine. And we become upset when our partners reaffirm this belief. The reason why white slave owners were able to take masculinity away from you is because they defined it for themselves first. Redefine your masculinity. Reconceptualize it. You being emotionally present does not make you soft. You being emotionally available for your girl does not make you soft. You being emotionally available for your children does not make you soft. You being emotionally in tune with yourself does not make you gay. You being able to take care of yourself does not make you feminine. And once again, y'all will say, oh, well, these women, bro. Y'all realize that there are clown head ass women the same way there are clown head ass men. Right? So any woman you run into that still holds on to that bullshit conceptualization of the patriarchy, tell her that she is not a real woman and continue to push it. Because you're not. You can't be. How is it that you are expecting me to uphold the same parts of the patriarchy to your convenience, but then you want me to turn around and not do parts of the patriarchy that harm you? You got me fucked up. Either we both dismantling the patriarchy in this relationship, or neither one of us are going to be in a relationship. That's just how that goes, right? Because a number of men, the reason why, once again, another reason why a number of men are upset with women is because some of y'all as women will not admit when you're emotionally incorrect. You will not. You will invalidate, you will gaslight, you will minimize these men's emotions, and you wonder why they're so upset. You want them to engage in the patriarchy at your convenience. In other words, you want to extract the benefits of the patriarchy from this man without being concerned about how it is that it harms this man. And the reason why you want to do that is for the sake of retribution. In other words, there's a part of you that believes that I have suffered for so long and for so much that when I come into this house, I just want to relax. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying you need to be aware of how that relaxation upticks that man's stress, and to not invalidate him when it does. Right? That is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the way in which we as a society identify men's emotions is through a very narrow lens, and it continues to harm us. But the solution to all of this is us as men having more honest conversations about what we're feeling, right? Having more honest conversations about where it is that our minds and our hearts are, and finding solace in groups of men who do the same. Because I am telling you, we as men fuck up when we try to seek solace in women who are just as stupid as we are. Keep it a bean. We as men are upset because we seek out traumatic. We do the same thing that women do. We seek out traumatic relationships because it is comfortable. I've heard men say straight up, oh, I like crazy women because, you know what I'm saying, it made me feel like she actually cared about me. What? But once again, I've been in that same boat. I didn't have my share of toxic women because for me, you willing to fight for me means that, you know what I'm saying, you ready to go. I like that, right? But now it's not to the same intensity. Because for me, I recognize that means that you are willing to protect me. That means that you are willing to do your part to make sure that we remain safe. I feel safe around you, right? I feel like you're not going to let nothing on the outside of our dynamic intrude on our dynamic. But then when you turn around and you start doing the same thing to me, and I say to you, all right, you bringing that outside shit in, but then you minimize me, that's a problem. Right? So when I say we mess up when we go to women that are just as stupid as we are, in other words, we as men seek women who are either of our intelligence or lower because we believe that women who are more intelligent than us weaponize that against us. That's one. But also two, we as men seek comfort and familiarity the same way women do. We just exercise it differently. So in other words, we tend to look for women that we know that we can make need us, or we tend to look for women who are more moldable, right? Or who can be trained. I hate that term, right? But the reason why we do this is because we are woefully aware of what it is that we have achieved as men. Woefully aware. Or the converse happens. We look for a woman who is much better than us and then attempt to bring her ego down to the ground, because then it gives us a sense of, yeah, I bagged this shorty. Even basically, I got her for a lower price. The rest of y'all had to pay all this money, or the rest of y'all had to do all this effort, or the rest of y'all had to dot, 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 dot. I did this just by texting her every once in a while. I got her on sale. Which means I'm smarter than the rest of y'all, because y'all had to exercise all of this emotional labor that y'all call it. Mm. Mm. Men have feelings too. We do feel. We do identify. We do assess. We do understand. And we are in a space where we have been socialized to not behave. We have been socialized to not express. We have been socialized to engage in aggression or violence in order to resolve our emotions. We have been socialized to subvert or subdue feminism in order to express our masculinity. We have been taught that we need to be the leaders without ownership. We have been taught that we need to be the bosses of the gods without having to earn that right. Fellas, if you know that you are mediocre, take accountability for your mediocrity. If you know you are lacking, do better than not lack. If you know that you could be doing better, stop wasting these women's time on potential and realize your own potential. Right? Because to be quite honest with you, the reason why you're so upset is because this woman is calling out the things that you know you haven't done appropriately. You just don't know how to resolve it. So you take it out on her. Take accountability for your manhood and masculinity, your own manhood and masculinity. Stop trying to force people to do what you want them to do simply because you believe that that's how they're supposed to do it. No. You lead by example. You want a woman to be more tender with you, be more tender with that woman. You want a woman to submit to you, learn how to submit to what it is that woman needs, because that is true dominance. True dominance is understanding how it is to deliver the needs of your submissive. That is true dominance. That is domination. That is BDSM domination 101. Be attentive to the needs of your submissive and be emotionally present for the aftercare of that submissive after a scene. BDSM domination 101. Both of those things have to do with emotional intelligence and availability. You want your woman to submit to you, you got to understand that woman so that she feels safe enough to submit to you, so that she feels secure enough to submit to you, so that she feels comfortable enough to submit to you. Because I've said it once and I'll say it 1,000 more times. There have been very few instances in which, with the amount of emotional intelligence that I have not had a woman come to me and say immediately, I will follow you off a cliff. And I say immediately, baby, I'll never lead you off a cliff. If you want to be the man that you believe yourself to be, you have to behave simultaneously as the man that you are and the man that you would like to be. I'm going to say that one more time. If you are a man and you want to be the man that you would like to be, you have to take accountability for the man that you are and behave and show up like the man that you would like to be. But I'm going to be very honest with you. The upper echelons of manhood require the respect of femininity. The upper echelons of manhood require self-care. They require introspection. They require patience. They require dick discipline. They require control of the tongue. They require a tuning of the ears. They acquire the readjustment of the eyes. Brother, you have to do a total body makeover if you want to be the man that you believe yourself to be. But because you will not tell yourself that you feel frustrated on this journey, you give up. Because you feel like every part of you is being ripped to shreds and you will not say that to anybody, you start getting into that bottle, you start getting into, you know what I'm saying, them pills, and they take you off your path. The song of the angels sounds so much, it sounds too sweet. So you go back to the deals of the devil because that's where you're comfortable. Brother, I know you got feelings. I know you have emotions. I know. I know that you have been hurt. I know that you have been led astray. I know if you have been betrayed. But I will say this, that is nobody else's responsibility but our own. And I'm not saying that makes us lonely. No, that's not what I'm saying. There are a myriad of black women who will love you where you are. But that's because they trust your vision and where you're going. Do you? Do you really trust in God the way that you say that you do? Because though you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you shall fear no evil. For a lot of men, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. For a lot of men, the shadow of the valley of death does not exist outside. The shadow of the valley of death does not exist outside. But fear no evil, even the own evil that you have committed against yourself, brother. Forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for the atrocities that you have committed against your own spirit and your own body. Forgive yourself for picking up doctrines that are not yours to pick up. Forgive yourself for aligning yourself with the people who just want to use and abuse women instead of uplift and grow with them. Brother, you do not have to take aimlessly from women in order to construct your masculinity, because that is the reason why you are not whole. Those pieces do not belong to you. They are not yours to keep. You are the master of the fate. You are the master of your fate, and you are the captain of your soul. Not no other woman, not no other man. So what type of king do you want to be? Not what type of king do you feel like you should be. What type of king do you want to be? Honor your feelings, brother. Honor your feelings. So, once again, good people, great people, guys, people. I'm about to cut off the stream from the YouTube. You feel me? I'm finna get into these comments on TikTok and we finna see what's busy. But yeah, good people, great people, guys, people. Once again, follow me on my YouTube at Odie's Office. Follow me on Spotify, I guess. And continue looking out. Also, once again, as I said previously, my services are available at my website, www.blackwealth.com. As I said previously, I have 3 services right at this moment in time. I have online Facebook communities and online coaching groups that are paid. I also have one-on-one sessions that are high ticket, meaning $1,000 a month or more. And I also have memberships in my book club that are subscription based. So, once again, good people, great people, God people.